I think I will always come back to mindset first. Let's start with our mindset because slow progress is still progress. So you may not be able to, move in the ways that you were moving beforehand. However, no progress is no progress. Slow progress is still progress. And so even just starting in that mindset, heart set space of something is better than nothing. So even if it just means that you sit up in bed that day and that's as far as you get, let's sit up in bed two times tomorrow. If you're a little bit more able than that, great. Let's walk around the unit one time.
This is NICU Babies Parent Support with Kathryn Whitaker, a podcast from Hand to Hold, a national nonprofit that provides free personalized support, resources, and community before, during, and after a NICU stay. My conversations here focus on education and personal stories with medical and hospital professionals, counselors, therapists, and NICU moms and dads from across the country. So whether you're preparing for a NICU stay, you're currently there, or you're months and years past your stay, you belong here. The NICU is hard. We're here to help. I'm your host, Kathryn Whitaker, the mom of 6 children, including my very own NICU baby, and I'm so grateful that you're here. Well, hey, y'all. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm so grateful that you're here. We have another amazing conversation in store for you today. If you're like me, your social media feeds are filled with it feels like every other post is, you should eat this. You should move your body like this. If you're this age, you should be able to do this. If you're, if you are eating this, you're a horrible person. And so you're trying to figure out, how do I fuel my body so that I can love the people in my life better? And that's what we're going to talk about today, is this integration of what are you putting inside your body? What foods are you putting inside your body? And then how are you moving your body? In other words, how do those go together and how do you make time for that? What's practical, particularly when you're in the NICU, but also post NICU? How do you find a system, a plan, decipher all the diets and all the ways in which you're supposed to move your body and make it work for you? So I knew that we needed to talk to someone that had experience in both of those things, and that was their career. So today's guest is Shalini Blubaugh. She is a certified personal trainer as well as a nutritionist. So I do believe that much of what we're going to talk about today, you can apply today, wherever you are in your life. And I think that it's really going to encourage you. I really, really loved this conversation. My guest today is Shalini Blubaugh. She's a Minnesota transplant living in Denver, Colorado with her husband, Matt, their gal pal, Callan, and her pup, Sully. She served with Net Ministries and went on to graduate with her JD, law degree, but happily left all things law behind. And we'll talk about why in our interview. She now runs her own company, Pray, Train, Grow, as a certified fitness trainer, nutrition coach, and soon to be nutritional therapy practitioner. And her mission is to help women go strong in mind, body, and heart. And so with that, let's chat. Well, I am very happy to have Shalini here. Shalini, I did say that right. I should have asked you that earlier. Yes? Oh, good. Okay, I nailed it. Thank you for being here. We have a lot to talk about, so I'm excited that you're here.
Thank you for having me.
I love having people who have expertise in all sorts of things, especially in things that I do not have expertise in. I only have experience. But why don't we start with, how did you get into the field where you focus on nutrition and personal training? I know that's not necessarily where you started, but how did you get there and why?
The very summation short story of all that is really God, right? Of this journey of going through college and grad school and just recognizing in my own heart, this is not where I'm called. So backing up, I actually grew up as an athlete. I love playing sports. I love camaraderie. I love women, surrounding other women, just supporting each other, cheering each other on. And so from a very young age, I had just known there's something that lights me up about encouraging women in the health and wellness world, but I couldn't quite put a finger on it yet. 6th grade, I tore my ACL for the very first time. That happened 5 more times leading up to and through my time in graduate school, and just going through the process of surgery and reconstruction and learning to walk again, and surgery and reconstruction and learning to walk again, and working very closely with those in the health field, recognizing, gosh, if I am impacted this much by the care that they're providing me, what does that mean with my heart already being set on fire with all things women's health and wellness? What does that mean in terms of, can I do something with this in the future? My parents, God bless them, Kurt and Molly, we love them, were originally from India, born and raised there. So there was always an underlying kind of expression of, you're going to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer. And so I knew, just kind of paired with my desire to work in women's health and wellness, become a personal trainer, that was really like my dream, wasn't going to be necessarily recognized by them as what I was supposed to be doing with my life. So that's what ultimately led me to grad school. I completed grad school and I really dove into personal training, really recognizing the beauty that food can be in our bodies. That journey was also very personal to me in that 2017, I got married, moved to Denver, Colorado, which is where we're at now, got pregnant, had our first child, experienced miscarriage, secondary infertility, weight loss, weight gain, how to put on muscle mass. So the experience itself was also very personal to me, as well as a diagnosis of endometriosis within it all. So really just grappling with, what is women's health and wellness? How do I keep myself healthy as a new mother and as a new wife and building my own business? And what does that look like in terms of serving other women that are also maybe not walking the exact same path, but walking something very similar?
Well, as you started to find this love for women's health and wellness, because I'm sure that it took on one form and then you became a mom, which shakes everything up. And then that adds a new dimension. Shalini, so how did that inform, I guess, your experience in working with women on their health and fitness journey now that you're a mom?
Yes, I love this question because moms are my heart now that I'm a mom too. And, coming into motherhood, even through pregnancy, I had this kind of vision of what my health routines would look like, what my sleep would look like, what my eating well would look
We
like.
think it's gonna be so abundant, so much sleep, so much we'll have all this time, it'll be great.
Yes, I'm just going to hold the baby and I'm just going to sit
Right.
here peacefully, right? And just these things that were just not true. And it's interesting to think back now, 5.5 years, because I didn't have the community of moms a season or two ahead of me to say, like, hey, just things to think about, or, things to be aware of. I really was kind of going into it all blind. And so coming into motherhood, I was in for a rude awakening, is probably the most simple way you could say that, of recognizing I am here with my baby who is where I want to be, right? This is where I desire to be, but also I'm exhausted and I haven't eaten since
Yeah.
this morning and I'm starving and I'm trying to produce milk to feed my sweet baby. But that's all. It was a very steep learning curve for me in a very short amount of time. And I remember calling my mom and saying, why didn't anybody talk to me about any of this? Of just what I desired my recovery to look like, and the reality that a lot of times it's not what we desire it to be. It is much more slow paced. And what does that look like, being somebody that likes to be in control and likes to have a
Mhm.
schedule and likes to know what's coming next? What does it look like to lean into that time where schedules are not a thing and you don't know necessarily in those very early months what life is going to look like for your little one, for your home life, for just the journey that it is. So I did not do it well, I will say. I can look back now and say, okay, there are a handful of things I would do differently coming into that space of motherhood. But I also am grateful for that time and that experience because, again, so much of my heart is motherhood and women's health and wellness. So just being able to be a resource for moms that are in that new stage, or that stage that just feels like a ton of chaos. What are the things that we are not in control of and can let go of, but what are the things that we can take ownership of and show up in little ways, in simple ways within the day-to-days, just keep some sort of normalcy in our days? That's really what I love to share about, and have found, God willing, we're able to go through that stage again someday. it will look differently.
I bet it will. Well, I mean, I'm sure that NICU moms listening are feeling deeply the loss of control, that there are so few things that you can control, especially when your baby is in the neonatal intensive care unit, or in your case, in the PICU. But you also have this desire. Like, I knew that there were some things that I could control, and I could control like what I ate, and I could control when or how I moved my body to some extent. But I think a lot of times, and I don't think this is unique to just NICU moms, I think this is every woman who gives birth, that there's this desire to go back to what was, Shalini, to go back to the weight that you were, the person that you were, maybe the normalcy that you were. So how do you find sort of your balance? And I hesitate to say the word balance. How do you find, I guess, the ability to hold space for the things when they need to have time given to them, whether it's your exercise, your nutrition, or your baby? So how do you integrate this healthy lifestyle when you are in a very chaotic place?
Yes. You know, we were at dinner. I was still pregnant with our little girl. We were at dinner with a group of friends, and I had asked, all of these friends had already had babies. And I just asked a very, very similar question, Kathryn, of like, what to expect? What should I expect? Or, any piece of advice that, how do you hold space for this new place? And I will never forget, one of the dads there looked at me and said, Shalini, you can't keep trying to pour new wine into old wineskins. And even sharing that still
Mm,
brings me chills, because it was just this acknowledgement that my life was not going to be the same. It was going to be different, and different did not mean negative, different. That was such a pivotal point even before Callan was here. I wish I would have remembered that more deeply when I was trying to like control all the things that I couldn't control. But even with that recognition now in motherhood, and for all of these sweet NICU mamas, of it's okay that life is what it looks like right now, and that it doesn't look a certain way yet. And just recognizing that the space in which you are in right now holds opportunity to just have both feet where you are and to be all there. And I think when we can just allow ourselves the gift of presence and the gift of grace in just being where we are, the opportunities in which we can have a grasp of and do something about become so much more clear when we're just able to let go of, well, it should be this way, or I wished it was this, or I ought to be doing this. When we can just let go of all of that and say, okay, I am here now, and my reality is X, Y, and Z. I'm not going to try and pour the new wine into this old place. I am here now with new wine and new wineskins, and this is where I'm called to be. And so, okay, with that being said, what do I have the opportunity to lean into right now? Even for as challenging and as hard, as chaotic as it still feels,
yeah.
it becomes so much more clear. Here's what I can do about X, Y, and Z. Here's what I don't have to worry about because of the medical professionals that are here to guide me, or the support system that's here to help me along with this. What can I be in charge of? And just letting that be that.
Well, I do think that there are lots of moms, I think, that carry certain myths about what should happen postpartum and what
Mm,
shouldn't. I know that sometimes that depends on the type of birth that you had. In my case, our NICU
sure.
baby was an emergency C-section. I'd only given birth vaginally, so I did not know what that entailed. And what I realized is that the physical part, I mean, I think I skipped over the major surgery part, and, had a difficult time, I think, Shalini, finding the energy, but also the motivation to wanna take care of my body physically. So maybe give people some suggestions of what are some small things that you can do to start moving your body, whether it's you just endured major surgery or you gave birth the traditional way, but you're still finding that you're in a tough place physically, but you still know that you have to take care of your body in order to provide for your baby. So give people some suggestions of some things that they can do immediately postpartum, and then maybe a little bit later as well.
Sure. I think I will always come back to mindset first. Let's start with our mindset, because slow progress is still progress. So you may not be able to, move in the ways that you were moving beforehand. However, no progress is no progress. Slow progress is still progress. And so even just starting in that mindset, heart set space of something is better than nothing. So even if it just means that you sit up in bed that day and that's as far as you get, let's sit up in bed two times tomorrow. If you're a little bit more able than that, great. Let's walk around the unit one time. If that's too much, great. We're just going to cut it back so it's at this comfortable pace at which you can progress. Progress is always going to be the key, I think, when it comes to getting back up and at it. I know so many of us are so eager to get going again after giving birth, but sometimes our bodies are like, miss, sit down, and that's okay. And something that I've learned over my time as a trainer and with nutrition and just the pillars of health, stress management, rest and leisure are just as productive for your body as, getting up and walking around. It depends what season of life you're in. And so many of us postpartum mamas want to just get up and be back to normal. But again, that mindset shift of like, okay, a little bit is better than no bit. Progress is progress and slow progress is progress. And today I'm just going to try and do a little bit more than I did yesterday. And if my body says, okay, then we're going to go with it and we're going to continue on. And if my body says that was a little bit too much for me, even still at this stage, then that's okay. I'm going to pull back a little and let that be okay. I think this world that we live in to push and push and push and push and push ourselves into places that our bodies are just not ready to go yet is more detrimental than just letting it have the time to rest and then getting up and going and just recognizing little incremental steps that we can be taking in the day-to-day to just do a little bit more. So being patient with ourselves too, I think, is tremendously important.
I'm glad that you gave a voice to the seasons, that not only is slow progress, but also it's not always going to be this hard. You're not always going to feel this bad. You're not always going to be this immobile. It's not always going to be this critical. And so I think there was a period we had just been discharged. I mean, we're talking just been discharged from the NICU. And I decided that it would be a good idea to sign up for a 10K. What in the world was I thinking? And so I started training for a 10K. And I remember my husband was like, I think he knew at that point, he was like, you know what? I'm not going to tell Kathryn what to do. And so I started it. And I mean, we all know how this is going to end. And it ended badly. And I ended up not doing the 10K. And I felt like a failure. And I think if I had listened to my body better and been like, Kathryn, it's not that you can't ever run a 10K, but maybe shortly after discharge is not the best time to run the 10K. So knowing that there's a season to that. This podcast is produced by Hand to Hold, a national nonprofit, but we're more than simply a podcast. Be sure to download our app in the Apple Store or on Google Play, or you can visit our website to discover all the ways that we can support you as a NICU parent at handtohold.org. You can join one of our support groups, sign up for counseling, find loss and bereavement support, request a peer mentor, or check out our educational resources and family stories. And all of that is at no cost to you. So when it comes to nutrition, Shalini, I know that you guys spent a little bit of time in the PICU with your child. Can you give us an idea of things that you can take along? Hospital food, I don't want to say it's bad, but maybe not as good as what you get it from home. So what are some things that people can take with them or that they can be mindful of, or maybe that they can ask people to provide for their family? So give people some ideas of how you can nurture the body nutrition-wise so that you can be a good advocate for your baby.
Absolutely. I think the first thing I would love to share is that it's okay if you're not feeling hungry. I remember being in the PICU too, and just recognizing stress hormones and what they do to our body is they lower appetite just naturally because our body is so concerned with everything that's going on around us. So our natural inclination then just physiologically is that we're less likely to feel that hormone that makes us hungry. So just to take note of that, it's okay that you're not feeling hungry, but also you still need to eat and you still need to try to take care of yourself in the midst of it. I remember being there, and community for us was a huge aspect of helping us stay well fed as best as we could, even taking little bites of whatever it was provided when I wasn't feeling hungry in that. So there's that first piece. It's okay that you're not feeling hungry, but please eat anyway. The community aspect, that was huge for us. I have a hard time asking for help and
Yeah.
receiving help. And in that time of life too, as a brand new mom, our little girl was just newly 3 months old. And our first child, and I felt like, well, if I can't supply all the needs all the time, it was just this new motherhood persona, I think, in myself, that I need to do everything for myself, my husband, everybody that was coming to call and text, and I needed to respond to everything. And it just didn't leave room for me to breathe. And it was my husband that said, Shalini, it's okay if we ask for help. And that was like a light bulb moment for me, a resistant light bulb moment for me, of just recognizing I can't do this all. In fact, I'm not called to do this all. I'm not called to do this all. And so at that point, we called both of our families. My sweet mother-in-law and my mom rotated shifts of bringing us food. We had people at the house that could just clean up and take care of dishes when the dishes went back. So recognizing that there are people around, getting back to the food aspect. If possible, reach for whole foods, fruits, vegetables. Those are great options. They're quick and they're easy, and they can tend to be handheld foods. Another great idea is just sliced deli meat, fresh from the deli. And again, handheld foods. It's not often that we can sit in the NICU with a plate full of, whatever else. It's not necessarily convenient to have a fork and a knife and a spoon and have the whole gamut there. So there are awesome opportunities to have even those handheld foods instead of, the fourth bag of Doritos for the day. Maybe it is that the carrots and the hummus that are super, super manageable and easy, and you can shove them in the fridge when you're done with them and then pull them out when you're starting to feel that sense of hunger again. But really, it doesn't have to be complicated to be nourishing, which I think sometimes we can get in the mindset of like, gosh, if it's going to be nourishing, then I have to, get out the pots and the pans and have all of the utensils and a full fridge or freezer. And that just isn't the truth. So the more simple we can keep it and the more fresh we can keep it, the better.
Well, I hope that there's some people listening who maybe have a friend in the NICU or someone that they love, that if you're wondering what can you take that person that's helpful, sometimes you can't always go into the NICU. I remember I had an amazing friend who gave us a basket of food. You have to talk to your NICU to figure out what's allowed in, what's not. Do we have refrigerator privileges or not? Usually that's reserved for mamas who are pumping and storing their breast milk. But at any rate, I know that there are lots of great foods. I'm glad that you mentioned some of those. So if you're looking for a good way to nourish a brand new NICU mama, that's one really good way to do it. So there's a lot of talk, Shalini, I know, as we get a little bit further outside of the NICU, so maybe you're starting to find your footing and your baby's starting to get to a place that feels a little bit more predictable and you've got your head all around it, then you start to think, okay, now I need to diet, I need to intermittent fast, I need to do all these things. There are a lot of approaches to losing weight. So what is your best advice to someone who wants to be mindful of what they put in their body, but maybe they're struggling with the timing of all of that, and who do they listen to?
Sure. It's a confusing space with nutrition and postpartum mamas and that desire. Even if you're not postpartum, I think it's a confusing space to
Right,
be
it's
in
confusing for
nutrition-wise, because
everyone.
there are so many voices saying so many different things. What I will always come back to as a nutrition coach and a personal trainer is that it's so bio-individualized. So to blanket statement anything would not be doing you a service. However, there are certain things that we can be attentive to in terms of moving forward. And okay, I'm at the point that I want to be losing weight. I always tell my clients the shortcut is never the best way. And I think we're surrounded by this culture that's like super fast paced and take this and it'll do this and try this and you'll lose this. And it's very tempting and it's very flashy and it's very sparkly because we want to get back to feeling our best selves and we want to, feel our bodies at our best again. I always will come back to what is most sustainable is probably the right way. And typically it turns out that the most sustainable way is more or less the slowest way too. And so
I was afraid you were going to say that. Gosh darn it, there's not a fast way. Slow and steady.
There is no fast way, and there's no secret. I think we're all kind of waiting sometimes for what's the secret to weight loss or what's the secret to feeling my best self. And there's no secret. It really is movement that suits your body, that feels good, that you end up at the end of that period of movement that you feel more energized and not drained, that you can recover from. And when it comes to nutrition, it's what you can reach for that's the least amount of processed, if possible, more whole foods, high in protein options that make your body feel really satiated, right? This desire to feel full and satisfied without feeling those after effects of, oh, I'm so bloated, or I feel lethargic, et cetera, et cetera. So trying to figure out what works for one person takes time, and what works for one person might not work for the next person based on what their stress levels are, what their season of life is. Are they able to sleep, or do they have babies that are waking up that they're breastfeeding in the middle of the night? All of those things are going to come into play when it comes to what is the best strategy, or what is my journey, or what should it look like in terms of my journey in losing weight or putting on muscle mass. It's going to vary per person, especially considering all of those different facets that play into their journey.
Yeah. And if you're a breastfeeding mom, you've also got to take into account that you're consuming more calories because it takes your body a lot of work to create that milk. And I remember, Shalini, there were some days that I remember thinking, I want to lose weight, but also my baby needs to eat. And so I think I'm going to have to put that on the back burner because I'm going to have to drink a ridiculous amount of water and eat better food because my body has to create milk for this baby who really needs it. So
Absolutely.
I think we find ourselves in a hard place of this waiting, and I think that's probably the challenge with all things. You know, we have to wait and be ready for our bodies to move. We have to wait for our babies to grow. We have to wait, and it's a series of waiting, but knowing that I really am grateful that I keep going back to that slow progress is progress. Man, I think I needed to
Mm.
hear that. So, if someone's trying to find a way, Shalini, to take care of their physical self, so the movement of the body, as well as what they're fueling their body with, how do they, or what are some good suggestions that you have for integrating those two and doing them in a way that's sustainable?
Absolutely. So I'd always consider, where am I at in my life right now? What does my schedule look like? What is it? What are the moving parts of my schedule right now? And where is it appropriate to insert movement? What type of movement do I like? Do I have any particular fitness goals? Do I want to put on weight? Do I want to lose weight? Do I want to grow in strength? What are my particular goals? And can I find movement that ties into the goals that I have, movement that I enjoy and like that ties into the goals that I have? That's number one with movement. That goes into the sustainability piece, because I work with many clients too that they will come to me and say, I've tried this and I've done that, and it was just a drag, and it was so hard to, become committed to that because I just didn't like the way that it felt. Okay, let's not do that anymore.
Don't do that
And so
anymore.
just knowing the self-awareness that you have, you are designed in a particular way. You enjoy certain types of movement. Do you like going for walks? Do you like getting outside to go hiking? Do you like to weight lift? Are you a runner? All of those things are really important to pay attention to, because the more likely we are to build a sustainable habit stems first from the more you like the thing you're about to do or trying to implement. Not to say that you're going to love every moment of movement. That's not what I'm trying to communicate here. But if you don't like at least a little bit of the way you're moving, it's probably not going to be sustainable. And then in terms of nutrition and how to kind of integrate everything there, do you like to cook? Is that something you want to learn to do? Or are you more of a, let's find simple instant pot, crock pot, one sheet pan, chop the veggies in my, chopper and throw them all in the oven? What kind of kitchen gal are you? Do you hate the kitchen? And so just considering, who are you? What time and space do you have to implement movement and nutrition? Do you like the kitchen? Do you like the type of movement? And how can we piece all of those things together to create something that's really, really sustainable for you, just one step at a time over time? So again, that sounds more ideal and perfect than it turns out being in real life. But those are the places that I often start with clients of, let's figure out what is realistic in terms of the season of life that you're in and what you have the ability for. Because I think oftentimes we can idealize, like, when I start this program, my whole life is going to, fall into place and it's going to be really smooth sailing. And what we often find is that when we implement or start a health and wellness journey, life comes at us like it always does. It doesn't just stop. What do I like? What do I not like? What time do I have? And how can I kind of put those things on my plate and recognize that life's not going to stop just because I start something like this, but that's okay because that's real life. And I like to tell clients too, when you start this program, we're not just going to take your life and try and shove it into this program. We're going to take this program and we're going to put piece by piece into your life that already exists, because that's sustainability. All of us have lives and have a variety of, whether we're in the NICU or we're out, and there's just chaos. It doesn't matter what type of chaos it is. There's always stressors. There's always things to be doing. There's always chaos. But if we can create something really sustainable and approach it with this mindset of simplicity, we don't have to overcomplicate more than is necessary. So coming back to movement that I enjoy, and what can I reach for that is whole and that I enjoy eating, that I don't mind prepping, then we can start there. And then slowly but surely, these things will turn into habits. And before you know it, you wake up and you just do the thing and you don't think about it.
That sounds manageable. Like, as you think about, I do. I think we look at program or a person and we're like, I want to look like that. I want to feel like that. And so we start to take someone else's life and try to make it our own, instead of looking at our life and saying, okay, these are the parameters that, this is the budget that I have. This is the kind of food that I have access to. And this is the kind of athletic facility, whether it's just outside or it's a gym, this is what I have access to. And so what can I make work for me? I think sometimes we believe that we must have the gourmet kitchen, the fancy gym, in order to have the lifestyle that we desire. And what I'm hearing you say is that's not necessarily, in fact, that's probably not the case at all. It's, where are you in this season, and what do you have access to, and what are your goals? And just know that it's going to take you some time to get there, but it's still possible. I love that. You've been giving us some good advice. I always end with a little bit of like encouragement or wisdom, but I'm going to ask you to speak some encouragement into a mom who is feeling overwhelmed with her current situation, but knows that she wants to take care of her body, both what she puts in it and how she moves it. What would your encouragement be to her?
I think we are very quick, typically. I know this is my own experience too. I'm very quick to look for, what is that big thing that I can change that will make me feel less discouraged or less alone? And what I've found over time, in general, not just within the health and wellness space, but in general, it typically comes back to, what is that one small thing that God's asking me to do or to lay down right now? And recognizing that within that, it's not necessarily about changing my whole lifestyle or making a huge pivot in the space of desolation or discouragement or sadness or frustration or stress. It's not about the huge pivot. It's just about recognizing kind of what we were talking about before, Kathryn, about what am I not in control of, and just letting that be that. But what is one small thing that I can do today that will give me just that little boost of confidence to remind myself that I have purpose. I am here for a reason. I have love to give and to receive. I have help to give and to receive, and to reframe that circumstance of feeling, just discouragement and loneliness, and replacing that with this opportunity to take that sense of discouragement, loneliness, frustration, chaos, and turn it into, all I am called to do right now is to be present in my circumstances, to lean in and just to find that one little bit of assurance that I can do this, that I am strong, that I am capable, that even for as hard as everything seems right now, that I have a role to play and I have agency in this, and that not all is lost. I think that's what I would have encouraged someone with if they were just in that space, a space that I have found myself to. I think all of us as women have found ourselves in those places of just this reality of everything seems like it's kind of tornadoing around me, but coming back to that place of, okay, I have a place here and it is not for naught.
That's such good encouragement. And you gave so many good practical ways, but also just reminding us of the mindset that we can be in as NICU moms who love our babies and love our families. So, Shalini, thank you for your great wisdom and your encouragement. So, what y'all didn't see is after my conversation with Shalini, I immediately pulled out my pen and wrote down all the things that I loved about our conversation. She said so many good things, and I didn't want to write them down while she was talking because I was totally dialed in. In today's 2-minute take, let me share about what it was that really struck me about our conversation. You know, y'all are in a season. I don't know what season you're in. I don't know if you're in the throes of the NICU, you're newly out, or you're well past your stay. But I know that our challenge as human beings is to be present to the season that we are in. We often look at our season and say, why can't we look like her? Why can't I feel like this? But we are comparing our season to someone else's, and they are likely to be not the same season, right? They are likely to be in a very different place than we are. Or if we are in a similar position, we neglect to remember that their access to things may be different than ours. Their desires, the things that they love may be different. And so her advice was saying, okay, what are my movement goals? Like, what do I enjoy doing? How do I enjoy moving my body? Is it by myself running? Is it in a group class? Is it lifting? Is it running? Whatever. What do you like? And then the second part of that is, and I love this, is I was looking at my kitchen that needs a lot of work right now. My whole pantry like completely undone right now. But what do I love to do? Do I love to cook, or do I want it to make it simple? I think being just present and dialed in to what your circumstances are, and knowing that they don't have to be a certain way in order for you to make progress. And then her comment about slow progress is still progress. I think that might be an analogy for the NICU, not just for those of us who are trying to find better balance with our eating habits and our movement habits, but just our mindset in general, that slow progress is still progress. So wherever you are in your wellness journey, whether you are eating like a boss or you need some help, or whether your movement goals, you're just killing it. Maybe you're in CrossFit, or maybe you're like, Kathryn, I'm having a hard time walking around the block. Slow progress is progress. So just be obedient to where you are. There are some great resources. We're definitely going to share some of those in the show notes, but take care of yourself, take care of your body. It is the only one that you get, and it is such an important tool in helping you love the people that are around you. Your baby, your family needs you to take care of yourself, to be the best version of yourself so that you can love well. And so remember that you are worth it. If you loved today's podcast episode, please do me a favor and share it. You can subscribe. You can rate it on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You can always watch us over on YouTube, and don't go anywhere, because the next time we're talking about this.
You can't just tolerate each other or anything. You really need to have good communication, talk about the things that are important for you, that are important for your partner, and find a way forward. Sometimes it's difficult, especially when it comes to sex and intimacy, because most people, we haven't been taught how to have conversations around sex. We don't have that language. So we may need extra support from a sexologist, a sex therapist, or a practitioner, a mental health practitioner who specializes in this area. And there is absolutely no shame around that, because it's a very common human experience.